two giveaways really were the difference there in that first half, because I thought we were doing some really good things. But then we got that takeaway, had a takeaway negated by an offside.
Dillon Gabriel was not better than Shedeur Sanders in minicamp when the rookies was there. He was not better at minicamp or training camp when the veterans was there. He did not perform better than him during the game he was in. And it's time out for people with the cap.
But I do view him as somebody who could position himself to be that QB2. And if he's not in that position, but he's playing well, we know that the reason that would be the case is because they don't want people clamoring for Shedeur Sanders prematurely.
Kevin Stefanski has finally given up, and it's clear now that he's no longer sold on Dillon Gabriel. After another disappointing outing, Stefanski openly admitted that Gabriel's performance was simply not good enough. In fact, he went as far as saying Dillon made some of the worst calls of the entire game, especially in that disastrous second quarter. The mistakes weren't just small errors, they were momentum killers, leaving fans frustrated and teammates visibly shaken. This marks a turning point, because when a head coach steps up and calls out his own quarterback like this, it tells you just how serious the situation has become.
Very good so far. And this one is picked off and going back the other way. The Eagles, Andrew Makuba. A pick six the other way.
After watching the game unfold, it became painfully obvious why Shedeur Sanders is the better choice. Dillon Gabriel struggled from start to finish. No touchdowns, no big completions, and wasted opportunities despite having the full support of the first-team defense. His mistakes didn't just stall drives, they completely shifted the momentum in favor of the opposition. And yet, instead of owning up to his poor performance, Gabriel carried himself as if he were still in control, even going so far as to take a jab at Shedeur Sanders by labeling him an entertainer rather than a competitor. That kind of arrogance, especially after such a disastrous showing, raises serious questions about his mentality and whether he truly deserves to lead this team. G. Bush didn't mince words. He called Dillon Gabriel's comments not only unnecessary but downright reckless. For a quarterback who has been hyped as having Skynet-like processing skills, the ability to read defenses at lightning speed, and the calm execution of a Terminator, Gabriel's actions didn't line up with the reputation. Instead of proving himself against tough competition on the field, he chose to take aim at Shedeur Sanders, and in the process, ignited tension with Sanders' massive and loyal fan base.
When it comes to being a supercomputer, he was only second to Skynet in the Terminator series. He is now capable of sending Terminators backwards and forward through time, waging a war with the Shedeur Sanders fans.
But here's the thing, this entire mess traces back to Kevin Stefanski. From the very start of training camp, he's been blatantly unfair to Shedeur Sanders. Despite Sanders showing flashes of brilliance, Stefanski refused to give him any first-team reps, keeping him sidelined while others got their shot. Even after that first game, when fans were buzzing about Shedeur's potential, Stefanski doubled down. He was adamant that Sanders wouldn't see the field, and his words made it crystal clear. Stefanski insisted that his focus was on developing everyone, not just Shedeur, but the way he said it felt more like an excuse to keep Sanders buried on the depth chart. And that's where the controversy really began. Let's listen to exactly what he had to say.
Yeah, pleased with Shedeur, pleased with the offense. Again, not perfect, plenty that we can work on, but I thought the guys did a really nice job of Shedeur and operating, the guys making plays. So, again, a ton to teach off of.
And if Stefanski's earlier comments weren't already raising eyebrows, the latest reports have taken things to another level. Word is, Stefanski isn't even looking to factor Shedeur Sanders into the picture moving forward. For fans, this was nothing short of shocking. After all the hype, all the flashes of potential, and the energy Shedeur has brought to the franchise, Stefanski still isn't convinced he's the guy who can deliver. That's a massive blow, not just to Sanders' confidence, but to the faith of a fan base that's been clamoring to see him take the reins. So what does this really mean for Shedeur and the Browns? If the head coach himself doesn't believe in his ability to lead, then it plants a seed of doubt about his future with the team. And if that seed grows, it could signal the start of an entirely different direction for both Shedeur and the organization. Everything pointed toward one possible reality. Kevin Stefanski was doing everything in his power to kill the momentum around Shedeur Sanders. Reports even suggested that Stefanski was the one pushing a false narrative that Shedeur had suffered an injury. And that's when Stephen A. Smith stepped in, refusing to let it slide. He directly called out Stefanski, accusing him of fabricating the entire Shedeur Sanders is injured storyline. Stephen A. argued that this wasn't about protecting a young quarterback, but about creating a convenient excuse to keep Sanders on the sidelines without igniting outrage from fans. The sudden talk of an oblique injury seemed to come out of nowhere, and Stephen A. made it clear he believed it was nothing more than a smokescreen, a carefully designed cover-up to keep Shedeur buried on the depth chart. Stephen A. pointed straight to the depth chart as proof of his argument, calling it the ultimate smoking gun. To him, it was clear the Browns never truly planned on letting Shedeur Sanders climb the ranks. If Sanders had been given the chance to build off the momentum of his earlier showing, there would have been no way to justify keeping him sidelined. But instead, right when key roster decisions were approaching, the sudden news of this injury popped up. Perfect timing to remove him from contention without stirring up a bigger controversy.
And that comes with going up against competition. Of course, second and third units and all of that stuff come into play. When you're the reigning defending Super Bowl champions, had he shown up this weekend and balled out again, playing 45 or more snaps like he did in the first game and putting up similar, if not better numbers, I think that would have boded very, very well for him.
And the driving force behind all of Stefanski's moves seemed to boil down to one thing: pushing Dillon Gabriel as the hero. But that plan fell flat. Gabriel's performance was anything but heroic. He struggled from start to finish, failing to reach the end zone or create any real momentum. Even with the benefit of a strong first-team defense backing him, his mistakes were the most memorable part of his outing. No touchdowns, no standout throws, nothing to convince fans that he was prepared to take center stage. What left people even more puzzled, though, was Gabriel's attitude once the game was over.
Dillon Gabriel's situation had gotten so shaky that even Kevin Stefanski couldn't sidestep it when speaking to the media ahead of the game. Though he opened by emphasizing that the Browns were in a solid position overall, it wasn't long before he was forced to confront the obvious: Gabriel's ongoing struggles. Stefanski admitted that Gabriel was responsible for 2 critical turnovers, both the result of his own decision-making, and those mistakes completely disrupted the flow of the contest.
2 giveaways really were the difference there in that first half, because I thought we were doing some really good things, but then we got that takeaway, had a takeaway negated by an offside.
Kevin Stefanski has finally accepted his mistake of holding Shedeur Sanders back, and that acknowledgement changes everything. For weeks, he insisted that Shedeur wasn't ready, hiding behind excuses of development, and even pushing an injury narrative that Stephen A. called out as nothing but a smokescreen. But after watching Dillon Gabriel collapse under the pressure, failing to lead drives, and turning the ball over at the worst possible times, Stefanski had no choice but to admit that his approach may have been wrong. By keeping Shedeur off the field, he not only limited the rookie's growth, but also robbed the team of the spark and momentum that Sanders clearly has the ability to provide. The turning point came when the reality of Gabriel's struggles could no longer be hidden. Fans saw it, analysts saw it, and eventually Stefanski himself was forced to confront it. His decision to stick with Gabriel in hopes of making him the team's next leader backfired spectacularly, leaving only one undeniable truth: Shedeur Sanders deserves his shot. The young quarterback has already shown flashes of composure, accuracy, and leadership that Gabriel simply hasn't matched. For Stefanski, this realization is as much about repairing trust with the fan base as it is about correcting his own missteps. Now the question is, where does the Browns organization go from here? Does Stefanski finally allow Sanders to step into the spotlight and prove himself? Or does he risk alienating fans even further by continuing to push a narrative that clearly isn't working? The truth is simple. Shedeur Sanders has earned his chance, and delaying it any longer only hurts the team. Stefanski has recognized his mistake. The next move will decide whether he fixes it or repeats it. But what do you think about Kevin Stefanski in all of this? Is he truly owning up to his mistake of holding Shedeur Sanders back, or is he just pretending to accept responsibility now that Dillon Gabriel's struggles are out in the open? Do you believe Stefanski is genuinely ready to give Shedeur a fair chance? Or is this just another way to control the narrative? Do let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. We want to hear where you stand on this.